Alright guys, today we're going to be assembling a 701 motor. This one's actually a 62T bottom half with 61X jugs. Just had them freshly powder coated. So the easiest way to do this, in my opinion, is you just set the cylinders down and then just rest the upper half of the cases on the cylinders. That way you could drop your crank rods down into the cylinders and not have them flopping around. And put in brand new seals in there along with a crank. So with the seals, if you have OEM seals, you want to do the ones with the tits on the exterior of the cases, the ones without them on the inside, and then same thing for the front. If you have OEM seals, you'll barely see them, but right here there are little ridges sticking out, and then those face outwards like that. I just went ahead and cleaned my whole crank with carb cleaner and brake cleaner, just to make sure all the bearings have no like crap inside of them. They'll spin freely. But it's so hot out right now and humid that everything was so cold that it's getting condensation on it. So I'm gonna oil everything up beforehand so it doesn't rust. But some people decide to fill their seals with grease. I'm going to decide to do that too. But when I mean fill it, you only want to do the inside edge where it's actually going to have contact on the metal. You don't want to do the outside. Just creates another way for it to slip. So I'm going to fill these all with grease and slide them onto the shaft. Now that you got all your crank seals all greased up and on there the right way, set your crank off to the side. I would just put mine over there for now, balanced. Now you're going to want to take either Yamaha Bond, Honda Bond, or any type of gasket seal. I use 1211. I just find it the best for my applications. And you're just going to do a very light coat all the way on the outside of your crank seal or crankcases. You don't want to do in here. Some people say you can. I choose not to. It's just the way I do it. But a light coat all the way around. If you do a lot, it's just going to ooze out and cause problems. Won't be a big deal, but you just don't want them all over your bearings as they're sitting in there. So that's the next step. Now that you got the stuff smeared everywhere, you're going to want to take your crank and seat the bearings. By that, I mean there's going to be little holes for each of your bearings that rest into there, and then seat all your seals too. Now that you got all your bearings seated, you'll hear them rocking in their spots. Just one way to double check. You're going to want to put a little dab of sealant all around these, just for an extra like protection around your seals. And then you could begin to close the clamp. Okay, I just went all the way through. I did torqued them down with my torque wrench. I did 11 foot-pounds, and I do caddy corner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, vice versa. From 11 foot-pounds, then I move up to 20 foot-pounds. Same thing, do caddy corner, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I just go through all the way once on all their torque ratings. It's hard to tell after the powder coat, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just to double check. And now you can go back through. I normally wait a little bit till it dries and I clean off all the excess goo that oozes out. And just double check. You know, I don't have the coupler on there, but spin this, make sure everything rotates good. That's just the rod smacking in the cylinders. And then you could flip this over and oil all the valleys, which I'll show you how to do that next. Okay, so after you clamp your cases back together, you're gonna flip your motor over. I already did it, but you pour 2-stroke oil down these chutes and it coats your bearings. Then you just keep spinning the motor over by hand by the crank rods. I poured, I run clots. I poured clots down there, and I also put a little bit of oil treatment. It's just a really thick oil. I do it when I rebuild motors, and it just helps stick and coat to everything. You can see there's a bunch of excess oil down at the bottom. That's fine for right now. I probably wouldn't leave it when you go to start it. I just don't know how long we're gonna let this motor sit before I put it back into my ski. So I put an excess amount just so I coat everything, and just keep spinning the motor over and coat everything. And the next step is your top end kit. When doing your top end kits, some important things to remember. On your pistons, there's an arrow. You want that arrow facing towards your exhaust ports on your cylinders. Secondly, you are going to have your retainer clips. Those go in the outside groove of your piston. Make sure that you put those in there, first of all. And second of all, make sure they're in all the way. If these little things come undone, it's pretty catastrophic. And then also, just if I were you, I lube this up beforehand just in my hand, the roller bearings or the wrist pin bearings, and then I drop oil down this little hole too, and then just keep rotating it in there. Haven't done it yet, but that's the best way to do it, just so you know that you got smooth contacts in there. But for now, I'm going to put these pistons on off camera. There's really no trick to it. Well, what I do normally is I put a retainer clip on one side of the piston, preferably the inside first, and then I slide the wrist pin bearing through, and then that way I could get to the outside one pretty easily, because if you do it the other way, or if you try to do both at the same time, it's pretty crappy. But I'll do that first, and then I'll come back and show you the second one. After getting all of your pistons and like retainer clips back in, make sure you double check that you have them on both sides and they're both seated correctly, that nothing bad could happen. Now your next step is to get your rings in place. My advice is I put the oil treatment oil all over these, and then if you look, they're the little, like, I guess you call them dowels in place. If you look at the ring itself, they have their own ridges that go into it. So if you slowly work it down, try not to bend these that much. They can bend or crack. So just slowly work them down into place. And like I said, put some treatment oil on them just to help prevent them from ever getting stuck for now during the break-in process. But do that to both of them. Make sure they're both lined up, and then I'll show you how to slide your cylinders over. Now that you get your rings all set temporarily where they should be, I like to get my base gasket down, and normal people put this down dry. I tend to get my 1211 still, and you could either put a coat on this, which is kind of hard because it gets sloppy. I just like to put a thin layer on both sides of the base gasket for your jugs, just because it's just, like I said, an additive just to make sure you get no leaks anywhere. Some people don't do it. I just decided to do it, so I'm going to goop this up really quick, lay it down, and then trick for sliding your cylinders down, getting your rings to compress is really just, it's easier with two people. It's doable with one. I'm doing it with one person, but you want to put one piston all the way down and start one piston. By that I mean squeeze the top ring, make sure it's sealed all the way around, get this lined up as much as you can right there, and then work the other one. And you don't want to let go of your ring until it's all the way in, not just on this little lip or this lip. You want it all the way seated, and then work the other one. Once you get both of them down, then you want to push this cylinder down and pull this one up while it's still in the sleeve, and then start this one. Once they get down, then you just slowly work your cylinders down, and you'll have your rings compressed properly. And just double check as you're working them down that these are compressed all the way. If you have one and it gets caught, you know, you're going to score your cylinders and ruin them. You have to get them rehoned. And you also don't want to break a ring or bend a ring. It's very bad. So just take your time with it. And like I said, it's easier with two people. It's perfectly doable with one. Just take your time. It's going to be awkward. And coat your cylinders with some oil first. It'll make the process a lot easier. Make sure everything's clean before too. But so I'm going to coat this really quick with some 1211 on both sides, and then I'm going to work the rings. I'm not going to be able to do it on camera just because I'm holding the phone, but I'll do that and then torque them down. I'll let you know what torque specs to use in the comment section below for everything. Go from there. All right. After getting my cylinders situated, getting the pistons back in, I always put an excess amount of oil up the top, and I normally just run it up and down a few times, and I go slow the first few just to get a good coat of oil everywhere. And you could leave the excess, it'll burn off as long as you don't have like an ungodly amount in there. But I torqued everything down. I did 14 the first round, and then I start from the middle and work my way out. And then I do the 2 first middle ones, and then I go to a corner, then the top corner, then the bottom corner, then the other top corner. And the second time around is 22. Like I said, same thing. Go from the middle, then work your way out and do an X pattern, and then go all the way back around with 22 and just double check that you have it. And it's foot-pounds, by the way. And now the next thing to do is same thing with the head gasket. Just double coat each side. Like I said, I prefer to put 1211 on each side of the head gasket. And then bolt those down to torque specs too. So I'll get back to you after I'm done doing that. All right, I've finished bolted everything up, put the head on, torqued all these bolts down to the correct foot-pounds. You start off with the sequence of 11 foot-pounds on each bolt. Like I said, I do the first 2, then do an X pattern all the way out, and vice versa. And then you go to 22 foot-pounds, do the same thing. Start from the middle, work your way out in an X pattern, and then go all the way around. I did it double, just like I checked it twice just for the hell of it. But once you check it again, I follow the stock Yamaha bolt pattern 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. But after that, the motor's completely done, and all you have to do next is just bolt your stator and flywheel back up, put your Bendix back in there, put some reed cages back on and your exhaust, and you're ready to go. That's that.